Foundation Radio is brought to you by 10th Ward Barbershop, a full-service barbershop offering high-quality haircuts, beard trims, and hot shaves. 10th Ward Barbershop proudly serves the historic Lawrenceville 10th Ward and surrounding Pittsburgh areas. Adam frequents 10th Ward Barbershop when he swings through the area and loves Ryan Kane's laser-sharp precision on both his hair and beard needs. But you don't have to take his word for it. WWE superstars Finn Balor and Corey Graves frequent 10th Ward Barbershop for their hair and beard needs. The team at 10th Ward accepts walk-ins, but schedules fill up quickly, so the best way to see them is to make an appointment at 10thwardbarbershop.com. That's 10th wardbarbershop.com. Make sure to grab some Silk Panther hair products in-shop or online while you're there. Schedule your appointment today to see Kane, Jordan, and the rest of the team at 10th Ward Barbershop today, and we thank them for sponsoring the program.
Peace world and welcome to Foundation Radio. My name is Adam Barnard. Thank you so much for joining me today. My guest is former WWE referee and host of the podcast Refin It Up, Jimmy Korderas. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for your time.
I'm doing fantastic, man. What a great time to be a wrestling fan, especially after the weekend we had. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Adam.
I appreciate your time. And honestly, God, there's been so many amazing moments all throughout the weekend. And we'll definitely get into that because I really want to talk about that. But I wanted to talk about, obviously, the early beginnings of you as a referee. Tell me about the start, how you get into a world like that, because I always am curious about that when I watch. How does one become a professional wrestling referee? So how did it happen for you?
It was a weird set of circumstances for me because it wasn't like I was consciously wanting to be a referee. I just knew I wanted to do something in the business. And by chance, I got to meet someone who worked for Jack Tunney under strange circumstances. He was the guy who took the pictures and did the program here in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens for what they call Stranglehold magazine. And I used to take pictures as a fan going down there. I had season tickets. I was sitting second row ringside, right beside this ramp that ran from the dressing room level with the ring. It was unique to Maple Leaf Gardens at the time. So I would get some great shots because I'm standing right beside this thing, getting great pictures of the guys. And I'd come back the next show and I'd sell them for $2 a pop, trying to fuel my habit. I could pay for my ticket. I could pay for my parking. I, paid for development of the film and make a few bucks on the side and whatever. And this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you got some pictures there. Can I take a look?" I said, "Sure." He says, "You sell them?" I said, "Yeah." "How much?" $2 a pop. He said, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Yeah. And who are you?" So he told him who he was. My name's Elio Zarlenga. I work for Jack Tunney. And I went, "Oh." He said, "Well, look, you don't seem like a bad guy. Just don't do it right in front of the garden." He said, "Just move down the street a little bit where they can't see you, And we became friends. And then he said, "You know what? You take pretty good pictures. Let me introduce you to Jack. Maybe you can help me take pictures at ringside and for the magazine, and maybe get a few bucks on this." I was like, "Oh, this is the coolest thing ever." So he introduced me to Jack, and Jack said, "You know what? We don't need another photographer. We'll find something for the kid to do." So they, do the odd jobs, whatever they needed done, go pick this guy up from the airport and go. And I'm going like, here, you're handing me the keys to his car, this Fleetwood Cadillac. He had this big ass Cadillac. It's like, wow. And he'd hand me the keys and nonchalantly, just go to the airport Marriott and go pick up Hogan and his wife. And I inside him.
Sure. Yeah. Hulk Hogan. Yeah. No problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to no sell it. Yes, sir. Whatever it is. And inside I'm going, holy moly, I'm going to pick up Hulk Hogan. This is the great, And from there, I got to meet Pat Patterson, who was the lead agent who worked under Vince at the time. And he was really good. He was like, sat me down and said, "You know what? I've been doing stuff for about a year or so." Excuse me. And he says to Jack, "Jack," and I can't do the French accent like Pat does, but he says to Jack, "You know what? We got the kid here. He's running errands up for us all day. Then he's waiting around showtime for something to do." He says, "Why don't we use him? Why don't we make him a referee?" And Jack says, "You know what? Do we want to smarten the kid up?" I'm standing right there. And he says, "Do we want to smarten the kid up?" And Pat says, "But he's in the locker room with the boys. He kind of knows what's going on.
Right.
Let's use him." So he told me to get black shoes, black pants, a blue shirt, and black bow tie, carry it with me at all times. And wait, and like an idiot, I waited for them to tell me when it was time. And instead of me going to ask, hey, how do I do this? What,
Right.
asking to learn how to become a referee. So one day at a house show here in Ontario, in Newmarket, Ontario, Chief Jay Strongbow says to me, he used to call me Jimmy Jam. He goes, hey, Jimmy Jam, you got your ref gear with you? I said, yes, I do, Chief. He says, put it on, you're reffing tonight. And I said, okay, but I didn't want to tell him, I don't know what to do. So he says, you're reffing SD Jones versus the Red Demon tonight. The Red Demon was Jose Luis Rivera. And luckily I was really close with SD. And I said, so I went to SD. I said, SD, I got some good news and some bad news. He said, what's the good news? I said, I'm reffing your match tonight. He said, oh, cool. He said, what's the bad news? I said, I'm reffing your match tonight. I said, I've never reffed a match before. He says, well, what do I do? He says, just stay close to me. Don't worry about it. I'll talk you through it.
Yeah.
And he did. And that's when the light bulb went on and said, okay, now I got to start talking to people and asking questions. How do I do this correctly?
Right.
And that was my foot in the door.
That's amazing. I love the baptism by fire approach to a lot of things, because I feel like that's the best way you learn, right? I mean, it's the only way you really learn is on your feet, doing the motions. I do want to double back to something real fast, because I'm a photographer as well, and I shoot mostly in film, and I'm always curious when I find out people start with photography. What cameras were you using at that time? And do you have a specific film that was your favorite? And did you take any shots that you were like, oh man, this is amazing?
See, I wasn't that into like specific film. I had a Nikon camera.
Okay.
Just, with the lens and the whole bit, and it had an interchangeable. I could do zoom lens and a regular 35 millimeter lens. And I mostly used the 35 mil because they were right there. They were that close. So there's no point in putting the zoom lens on.
Right.
And as far as film went, whatever I can get at a decent price, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And they had a film developing place up here called Direct Film. And what they would do is they'd say, double your prints for $1. So I would double my prints for $1. So I'd take one set and keep them for myself, and I'd sell the other ones. So I was getting two bang for my buck. You know what I mean? And I have some really, really cool pictures, like Flair in the blue robe coming up onto the ramp. I've got the Briscoe brothers, Jack and Jerry. I sent Mr. Briscoe, Gerald Briscoe, who's a tremendous guy. I sent him a picture of that because he says he doesn't have that many pictures of him with his brother. And this was like him tag teaming with his brother at Maple Leaf Gardens, standing on the ramp, walking out of the ring towards the dressing room. And I sent him that. And I got stuff with guys walking into entering the venue, because they used to enter from the back of Maple Leaf Gardens on Wood Street. They'd have to walk through the people to get towards the locker room entrance. So I got like Dusty Rhodes, and I've got a picture of Dusty with the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant.
Wow.
Stuff like that, like his Mid-Atlantic territory, before Vince, took over the Toronto office. It was mostly Mid-Atlantic territory wrestlers that came up here. But Frank Tunney, Jack's uncle, he brought in wrestlers from everywhere, from AWA, from WWF, from Mid-Atlantic. So it was NWA, AWA, WWF. Like I said, everybody was here. There was even a match at Maple Leaf Gardens where they had champion versus champion. Bob Backlund versus Nick Bockwinkel.
Wow.
Which of course went to a double no finish kind of deal. Of course.
Of course. Schma's finished. Of course. You got to keep the champion safe. Yeah.
Yeah. But back then I didn't know the difference. So I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Have you ever thought about potentially publishing any of those photographs? And I know you've done your book, The 3 Count, but have you thought about publishing anything that you have in your archives?
No, that's funny. I've never thought of it to use it to hear some old school pics to make some money. But now that you put the bug in the ear, maybe I'm going to have to go look through the archives.
Hey, listen, you're welcome, sir. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to a copy of that book. So, as a referee, when you're starting too, like, have you ever been in a situation in a match where you're going through the motions and you're just like, boy, I really blew that spot, or boy, I really blew that? Because I know in situations when I start, especially on the show here, if I'm asking a question or if I'm talking to Meanie, I'm like, boy, I could have phrased that question better, or I could have done this a little bit differently. Was there ever a moment where you're like, boy, I really, really didn't get that one right?
No, all the time, especially when you're first learning, and even to when you're seasoned, when you think you're seasoned, you know what I mean? it happens. I'm one of these people who, because the referee's job that I learned early on is to help the talent tell their story. You're not part of the story. You're supposed to be invisible until you need to be visible, but you have to be there to be the conduit, the communication between the talent when you need to be. And then later on, when we started wearing the earpieces, the communication from the gorilla position and all that sort of stuff. And I'm very hard on myself with, because I want to be there for them. It's not about me. It's nice to get recognized, but at the same time, I always knew it from day one. It's not about me. And I'm perfectly fine with that because I'm doing something I love to do. And that is satisfying to me. So, but there were many times where I would second guess myself, question myself, even right after, like, a pinfall attempt where it's a false finish. I wondered, that felt like the count was off. Like I gave away the false finish or something like that, because sometimes you get, for example, little things where your cadence needs to be consistent throughout the match. And sometimes when it's a false finish, you tend to hurry it up a little bit and try to make it overly dramatic.
Yeah.
So then I'd step back and go, and now as much as I'm supposed to be thinking of what's coming next, I'm thinking, I start going, oh, did that go? Oh, more, get that out of your mind. Get that out of your mind. You got to go forward. So sometimes it is a challenge.
I know there's a famous video and story with Charles Robinson and Chris Jericho that was a kind of a miscommunication and then turned into a bit of a shoot in the ring there. Have you ever had a situation like that in the ring where somebody gets hurt or something happens and you're like, oh, I have to pivot really fast, but you don't really know what to do? Have you ever had a situation like that before during your time as a referee?
Yeah, there are times where that happens, and you again start. It's a split-second decision on what you're supposed to do in situations like that, where somebody's hurt and you're trying to help them out and tell them, stay down, breathe, relax, take it easy, and they don't listen because the old school mentality was, get in there, finish the match. And, luckily as time progressed, the protocols were put in place where, hey, you guys have got to figure out how to judge whether somebody is good to go or not. We had little ways of telling if somebody looks like somebody got their bell rung and stuff like that. But sometimes you'll get heat from the boys because, hey, we're doing this for your own good. Stay down, let somebody take a look at you. If you're good to go after they say so, okay. But a lot of times you'll ask if somebody's okay. Of course they're going to say, they're trained to say, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. Even though, but we had a little telltale sign where, I know this sounds like simple to a lot of people, but if someone looks like they got their bell rung and their wits are not about them, you would reach over and the two fingers, you'd squeeze them, like just give them a little squeeze like that. And if they squeeze back, if they squeeze back, then they're aware of what's going on. They have their wits about them. They're kind of conscious of what's going on. If they don't squeeze back, then you know that something is up.
I see.
And that's when you say, okay, dude, that's it. You're staying down, and you let the other guy know. And of course, the other guy standing over there, and the little symbol was, you give him the X and let him know, hey, something's wrong here. Stand back,
Yeah. Now, I know it brings me to that question, or there was conversation, I guess a couple months ago now. I think it was Giovanni Vinci. Giovanni Vinci got his bell rung, I think, when a botch move with Kofi Kingston. As someone who was previously in that position, what were your thoughts as you were watching the referee, assess, call the spot? What was your take on that?
I'm trying to remember the spot clearly. Forgive me because I'm not remembering it very well. If you can,
that's okay. I think if I remember correctly, I believe Giovanni Vinci jumped off the top rope and caught a drop kick by Kofi Kingston. But it looked like your timing was off, and he hit him kind of right in the face as he came down, and he came and smacked his head really hard on the mat. Like he bounced up and didn't come up, and the referee obviously made that decision and threw the X up and called the match. But everybody looked kind of confused.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but so he landed on the outside and his head hit on the outside. See, that's a lot different. I mean,
oh no, it was actually. I'm sorry, I apologize. It was in the ring.
It was in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know people are under the assumption because the ring does have some give to it that it's soft and there is a padding there, but it's still not pleasant to land on, especially if he hit his head. Did he hit the back of his head?
I believe, yeah. The way it looked, like he came down, like kind of right on the cap of his head here, and was a very. It didn't look like he had the opportunity to really block himself.
Right. Yeah. See that.
Yeah.
So if the referee was there and he called and he, probably gave Kofi the signal, like, stay back, let me check on him, make sure he's okay. And Kofi's professional enough to know that that's what he's doing. And then he assessed the situation and figured that, hey, you know what? We can't continue. That's it. He did the right thing. He did the absolute right thing.
And I'm glad those protocols are in place for you guys now. It just, it makes the match. It makes the matches look a lot safer and everything is a lot cleaner. I know it's a little bit difficult in the throes of the match, but It just seems like it's safer overall for everybody that's involved.
And in a world where everyone wants more realism, so to speak, and say, hey, we're treating this like a real sport, that happens in real sports.
Absolutely.
It's, you know, as hard as it is on the talent who gets their bell rung, so to speak, you know, again, it's a safety protocol, but also makes people go, oh, you know what? This stuff does hurt.
Right.
I hate using the F word. You know, it's sports entertainment, so it's pro wrestling, but at the same time, you know, it doesn't mean that anybody can walk in there and do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a level of skill that comes along with that, but even the best can make mistakes from time to time. And again,
Absolutely.
I love that referees in general and the talent are empowered to make those decisions on the fly, and that you have that protocol there in place. I wanted to talk to you about, you know, obviously you come into the WWF and into the WWE, and then you get the opportunity to referee main event between Undertaker and Edge. I've heard some stories, you know, Bubba Ray Dudley or Bully Ray talks about, you know, the pop that happens when you come out into the crowd, right, for the 1st time, and you almost go deaf from the sound. What was the experience like for you, right before that match starts, as the kind of the fervor is building toward the main event? What's that look like from a referee's perspective in the ring?
Well, it's amazing because once you're walking to that ring and you feel that audience, you see the grandeur. First of all, the stage is bigger than it usually is on TV, and there's so many people in the audience, and you're going, oh, you know, as much as the boys get that adrenaline going, so do we. It's an incredible feeling, and then you just, you know, you take your spot in the ring, you fade back into the corner, you're waiting for the announcements and everything, and you're just taking it all in, and you're looking around, and you're listening to the buzz, and you know. Like The Rock said, goosebumps, my friend, goosebumps. You literally get it. It's an incredible feeling. And then you get someone like The Undertaker, and you hear that gong and all the pageantry, and the lights go dim, and the purple lights come up and everything. And you see that figure, that silhouette in the entranceway. And all of a sudden you're going, I can't believe I'm here. And I can't believe I'm refereeing his match at WrestleMania, the main event. He was our leader. He was our locker room leader. He was the man. So it doesn't get better than that. And then getting to referee his match against a longtime friend of mine from Toronto area, who it's funny because, you know, he was there at WrestleMania 6 watching in the crowd. He always used to tell me, I used to watch you with your frullet refereeing at WrestleMania 6 in the Sky Dome in Toronto. I don't care what they call it now. It'll always be the Sky Dome. I don't care. But, but, you know, and he said, and that's the funny thing, I wasn't originally scheduled for that match. It was him and Taker who requested that I referee that match.
Oh, that's incredible. That's amazing. That must have felt really good. Yeah,
it did. I didn't know until about a week or so before, where I was in the locker room and just getting ready for TV, the go home show, the SmackDown show. And Edge walks up and he says, Adam, he says, Jimmy, can I talk to you for a sec? I said, yeah, absolutely. What do you need? He says, Taker and I want you to ref our match at WrestleMania next week. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But I wasn't scheduled to ref the match. I said, he says, yeah, no worry, we can get that done. I said, if you can, I'd be honored. You know what I mean? And then I ran into Taker in the hallway. He said, did Edge to talk to you? I said, yes, sir, he did. He said, are you cool with that? And I'm thinking, he's asking me if I'm cool with it. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. You know, this is the greatest thing ever. Yeah,
man. You're gonna say no. Yeah. Like,
yeah. No, I don't think so. Maybe next year.
Hard pass for me, Taker. I appreciate it, but no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's unbelievable. No, I mean, I can imagine it's just overwhelming in that moment, and you're in the ring and you're just taking it all in. It's probably quite incredible. So,
and then getting to take a bump from the dead man. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So, and that's the other funny thing too. We were talking about it the day before in the green room, and everybody's going over, okay, this is how the match is going to go. Michael PSAs was the agent, and he says, Jimmy, you know, we want to bump you and get you knocked out of the match. Are you cool with that? And I'm like, why are they asking me if I'm cool with this? Whatever you guys want, man. This is WrestleMania, and I'm doing this match. Do whatever you want. And then Taker says, are you cool with taking a big boot? Take my head off. I don't care. You know what I mean? This is the greatest thing ever. So the big thing was I wanted to not, when the time came for the bump, I didn't want to see it coming.
Right.
For two reasons. A referee should not bump like one of the boys. Because if you flat back and do that sort of stuff, now you look like you're trained to do it, and it's supposed to happen. Right. It's got to look like a normal human being taking a bump. And two, I didn't want to look at it coming, because if I see it coming, I didn't want to flinch, because that's your natural reaction.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so I thought, you know what? I know it's coming. I'm just going to walk into it. That's it.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's a smart idea. I never thought about it that way because I know that my first reaction would be to immediately flinch, right? If I know
Yeah.
it's coming, I'm going to
Right.
tense up and I'm not going to sell it well.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, and that's why I said, I'm just going to do it, take it. And the funny thing is, it connected, but I didn't feel it. The adrenaline was pumping so much. I had to keep telling myself, stay down, don't move, stay down. You know,
You're probably all jacked up. You're like, no, I want to get
exactly.
up and do this. I want to move. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's wild. That's funny. Speaking of the Undertaker, I know that recently him and Mark Henry were on his podcast talking, sharing some of their favorite stories about Owen Hart. I know,
Oh,
unfortunately, we came up on the most recent anniversary of his passing, and I wanted to talk to you about what your favorite Owen Hart story was with your time with him.
oh, where do I begin? It was incredible. I mean, there was everything from the clown noses, which Jeff Jarrett talks about fondly. It's funny because it was a match. It was a tag match in Germany, and it was Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart versus Edge and Christian, and they're having a lot of fun during the match. Like Owen was starting to get heat on Edge, and he would, go up to the bottom rope and do a splash on his legs and cover him there and scream at me to count. And I'm like, and I'm trying not to laugh my butt off, but and he's doing all this stuff, and and they're doing the foreign object thing where they're passing, him and Jeff are heels passing the foreign object back and forth, and I can't
Yeah.
catch him until I eventually do. Owen's got it tucked under his arm. The whole time he's doing it, I have no idea what he has. I just know we're running the whole foreign object thing. And he says, okay, now it's time to catch me. So he's got it tucked under his arm. So I'm giving him heck, telling him, lift your arm up. What's under there? And he says, nothing. And he says, start counting. So I do the count. And, if I get to 5, you're disqualified. I get to 4. He lifts his arm. It's a red napkin that floats to the, and I didn't know it. So I just picked it up and acted like it was brass knucks. Were you using these? And going on. And then they go into the big comeback, and him, Edge and Christian got him on opposite corners, and they get up on the ropes to do the 10 punches.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're looking at the crowd first, looking for their approval. While they're looking at the crowd, both of them reach into their trunks and pull out these little red clown noses and put them on. So as they looked down to start the punches, they went, oh my God. But then they started the punches anyways. These noses pop up. And to this day, I picked them up. I put them in my pocket. And to this day, I still have them.
Oh, that's amazing.
As a souvenir.
That is amazing. Now, everything I've ever heard about the man has just been nothing but wonderful, funny, fantastic stories, and he just seemed like the coolest guy. And I always wonder what he would be doing in today's wrestling world.
In today's wrestling world, I don't know if he would still be involved because he loved his family so much. He just wanted to do what he loved to do until he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then just be with his family. And that's the type of human being he was. And he was everyone's friend. Nobody has a disparaging word to say about Owen Hart. And the funny thing is, when you got ribbed by Owen, you knew he liked you, because none of them were ever malicious or anything like that. The greatest one ever was the one he pulled on Vince, though. Many, many years ago, when they had Triple H had that hog pen match with Henry Godwin. So
Yes.
they were waiting for the delivery of the live pigs to be delivered to the arena, and the truck pulled up, and Owen just happened to be in the area, just happened to be there. But the guys get out of the truck and say, "Hey, where do you want these pigs for when we unload them?" And Owen said, "Bring them this way. Follow me." So all the staff was in the production meeting, including Vince, and he takes all these pigs and he files them into Vince's office. Closes the door. Vince comes out of the meeting. Vince is strutting down the hall. He opens the door. He walks in. Not 3 seconds later, he comes barreling out of the office screaming, "Owen!" He knew who it was right away. But he was laughing. You know what I mean? All this stuff was just fun. It makes you laugh.
That's amazing. That is, I can only imagine the actual Vince McMahon reaction as he walks in, just the big, over exaggerated. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you, speaking about, current times and kind of transition into this part. I love your Refin rants on your Instagram. I really enjoy seeing them on the daily. There were 2 things I saw recently that I wanted to touch, kind of ties into more of the current product.
Right.
You had a conversation, or I guess it was this past Monday, about Braun Strowman and his return, and big guys looking like big guys. And I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of time to talk about that here for anyone who's listening that didn't get a chance to watch it, to watch the Refin rant. What was your takeaway from Braun Strowman and his return match on Monday Night Raw?
The way he'd been presented so far is okay. He looks like a big monster who, it's going to be tough to get through. And against JD McDonough, I get the idea. He's with Judgment Day, and he was against the numbers. There were a lot of shenanigans going on to help JD McDonough get some heat on him, but I thought there was too much heat on him. Yes, I get it. They took out his leg and he couldn't. No, but still, he's the man beast. He's not, with all due respect to Rhino. This guy's look at the size. It wasn't David versus Goliath. It was the Great Kazoo versus Goliath. It was like incredible difference. And okay, I could see him trying to get some offense on him, but for his first match back, I thought he needed to look and just dominate. And if it was going to take any time on the clock, it was him having fun ping-ponging him around as opposed to him getting in so much offense. And even with the interference, they could interfere all they want, try to get their stuff in, but they get nowhere with it.
Right.
Yes, and everybody's going to say, but that's going to bury him. But it's not burying him. It's Braun Strowman getting him over.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. So, I took a little heat for that. But yeah, but how are they going to make this guy look like something? But okay, then don't have the match.
It's reestablishing someone who hasn't been on TV for a while. He's been injured for God knows how long.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He was a very dominant force in the company for many years. He's a former two-time Universal Champion. How else do you reintroduce him to this crowd but to put him over like the biggest guy on the roster? I thought they did a great job with that. I thought they made him look it was very much like Keith Lee in his first couple of matches in AEW, where he comes in, he's this big strapping guy and he's throwing people across. Like, that's exactly how you want big guys to be presented, right?
I would think so. And look at what they got maybe down the pike somewhere, because you see what a Braun Breaker is doing, just dominating and putting people through through backstage sets and stuff like that. So maybe there's something down the road there where you get two meaty men slapping meat or whatever they say, something like that. I don't know.
The Big E Invitational we're all still waiting for, the big meaty men slapping meat. Yeah, no, right. I mean it's right. I don't understand the discourse behind it and the idea of anybody complaining about that. But I know we share commonality in something recently. I know I took some heat for a Jey Uso tweet, which I stand behind, by the way. I stand behind the fact that wrestling fans are fickle when it comes to everything. But you took a little bit of heat on the Refin rant that you did about Swerve Strickland as the AEW champion. And I'm aware of it. I think people really misunderstood what you were saying. And I'd like the opportunity to give you a chance to talk about it here, because I thought the heat that you caught from that was pretty unfair.
I think it was unfair because they thought that I was judging Swerve Strickland, the man. I wasn't judging him as a character, as a personality. I think he's great. I think he's a guy who could serve and present that championship for that company like it should be presented, like a big deal, the big thing. Because when you are a company's world champion, you have to be priority number one as far as how you are treated, how you are presented, and how it appears. Perception is reality. And if you make him a part of the middle of the show, or not, the first show after he won the title, that's the first thing this audience should see.
Yes.
Here's our new champion. Here's the guy who's going to guide us into the future. Here's the guy we're strapping the rocket to. Make it a big deal. What is the first thing we see? Orange Cassidy getting bounced around again. Why? And then we have him in a match against Kyle Fletcher. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the match. It was a fine match, but it was a meaningless match that meant absolutely nothing. It meant absolutely nothing. And then for several weeks following, he's in, this program with Christian, which I give Christian credit for doing his best to make this a meaningful feud, which he did a great job at. But they didn't make it priority number one. Again, what was priority number one? The EVPs versus everybody.
Right.
And I get that's a big time storyline, but again, your champion has to look like the big deal he is. And Swerve Strickland is that guy I think they are doing him a disservice. That's just my opinion. And it's not him I have a problem with. It's the way he's being presented. That's the problem. And when I say that, well, what about Cody Rhodes? Yeah, what about him? We're not talking about him right now.
There's no difference. If you want to talk about it, okay, Jimmy and I'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. The fact that they did the right thing with Cody Rhodes. They built his storyline up over a 2-year arc, and the first thing you see after WrestleMania 40, the very first thing you see on the screen is Cody Rhodes come out there with the WWE Championship on his arm, on his waist. He's out there as the champion giving his speech.
And
That's
who's
how
out
a
there,
champion.
and who's out there with him, congratulating him and giving him his flowers?
The Rock.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The
Now that's
biggest
a
name in
big
the
deal.
the biggest name in the company, the biggest person that could possibly be involved in this main event comes out there, gives him the rub. After Taker's given him the rub, John Cena, that the whole thing that happened in that match, they come out and they give him the nod that he's the guy, right?
Exactly.
And you're right. That's how they should have built Swerve. I love Swerve. I think Swerve's a great character. I think they're doing amazing things with him. I thought the arc and the timeline that it took for Samoa Joe to get the title off of him onto Swerve was the right way to do that. I don't personally want to see somebody or a character like Swerve get relegated to kind of the last bit, right? The anarchy in the arena, I can see how potentially maybe you would want to be careful about putting them on after something as wild as that. I could totally understand it from that perspective. But when that's the rule and not the exception, where Swerve is now in the mid card or not anywhere close to the main event, you got yourself a real problem there.
Right. And then people are trying to, justify it, saying, well, he's in the crossover hour. You know what the two biggest parts of a show are? The beginning and the end. Those are the two most important parts of a show. The crossover hour is there to hopefully help a little bit with somebody else in storyline number 2.
Right.
That's what that section of the show should be. You know what I would have liked to see actually in the first episode after he won the title? Him coming to the ring, cutting his speech. I got here. I did it. You can, Tony Khan, you can count on me to carry this company forward, whatever verbiage he's going to use. Have Samoa Joe come out, because Samoa Joe is just awesome.
Yeah.
And just have Samoa Joe in a menacing way, the way Joe can do it. Give him his flowers. Tell him you got the better of me this night. You know what? Enjoy that for as long as you can, because someday I'm coming back after that. But right now, I'll let you have your moment in the sun. Congratulations. Right. Walk away and give him the ring.
That's how you establish him as the dominant champion, right?
Exactly.
I guess, and it's the same thing kind of what happened with me. And, I promise to keep it brief, but it's like with the Jey Uso tweet, everybody was so pissed and they were so upset about this idea that he could be the guy that beats Ilya Dragunov. And I'm going, that's what makes the most sense to me, building the storyline. They're not going to give you Ilya Dragunov and Gunther on a random Monday night for a King of the Ring qualifier match. Steve Austin walked out of the company for the same reason. Like, why would they give you something so incredible on an off Monday night? And there's nothing wrong with, Monday Night Raw or anything like that. But it's like the story is that Jey Uso is becoming the guy. He's being built. The crowd is behind him. He's got all this goodwill behind him, and boom, he gets crushed and choked out in the middle of the ring by Gunther. Right. That is a more acceptable way to put both of those guys over, as opposed to giving away something as just in a hot shot way. So I don't know. The wrestling fans, sir, are fickle. But what's not fickle and what I enjoy every week is Refin It Up, your podcast that you co-host with a friend of the show, RJ Krasinski and Brian Hebner. Tell me a little bit more about the show and where people can find it.
Oh, well, we're having a blast, Brian Hebner and I. And RJ, I keep saying holds the glue together, because without him, I don't know we could get it done. So that's being totally honest. But what we do is we have a lot of fun. We talk about what happened in the week. We have a little segment called Ref and Review, where we maybe break down something that happened from a referee standpoint, something we saw that we either didn't like, or we even give referees their flowers for doing something that should be acknowledged. We've seen a lot of that. I know a lot of people are talking about the Randy Orton, Gunther situation with the shoulder being up, and went over that. We went over that thoroughly on Refin It Up, and I joined Dave LaGreca and Mark Henry this past week talking about it as well. It's a tough situation. It's easy to make two Monday morning quarterback and say, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe, mistakes happen.
Sure.
I like calling them mistakes. I don't like calling them botches.
Right.
I prefer the term mistakes. That's just the way, because errors happen everywhere. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Referees make bad calls. They do. This one I felt was, there was that discussion because of Triple H's response afterwards. Was it a work? Was it planned? Was it not? My perspective from watching it, I don't think it was. I think it was a faux pas, as I like to say, because Randy's shoulder was down for one. But then when Gunther really cranked it, he kind of lifted his shoulder up.
Yeah.
And poor Dan Engler was right there. And you saw as he was counting 2, he was trying to move himself over to the side where the shoulder was down to try and position himself where he almost looked like he couldn't see it. He tried his hardest, and people say, well, why didn't he stop? And I keep telling him, from my perspective, in a match like that, when they set it up so well, that finishing sequence, the RKO into the roll up and that sort of thing, how do you stop something like that when the crowd is so into it and try to reset and do it over again or do something different? You run the risk of losing them big time. And the thing I keep telling people, you know what? It was a mistake. Move past it. Just remember what kind of a great match these guys had. And you know what? You use this in further a storyline later on.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I want you guys to go and check out, after you listen to this episode, obviously, and you check out the archive and foundationradio.net. Go ahead.
If I may, this week we had you want to talk about bangers? We had Les Thatcher on this week, and oh my God, he had me in tears. It was so good. It's amazing.
I cannot wait to listen. I know. I remember. I think I saw something about that recently. I'm very excited to listen to the show. You can find Refin It Up anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. So please go and check it out because it's an absolutely phenomenal show. Jimmy, I had one final question for you, and it's not wrestling related, but I wanted to know. I see on your feed too that you're into cooking, and I wanted to know if there's anything that you enjoy making recently in your travels or anything you've picked up and that you're really enjoying cooking right now.
Right now it's because it's the season. I'm into barbecuing. I'm really loving firing up the grill and doing some stuff, but I had these nice round thick medallion sirloins, bacon wrapped, nicely seasoned. I let my wife do the seasoning because she's really good at getting that flavor out, and we barbecued those over the weekend with a little bit of with a few family members, and that went well. And I also like grilling my vegetables now. I have this nice little grill plate that I put over top, and we had like asparagus and red peppers and onions and all this sort of stuff. Just simple. A little bit of extra virgin Greek olive oil. It has to come from Greece. Yes, it is. Kalamata olives. You know what I mean? It's the good cholesterol. Don't worry about it, guys. And just you don't have to overdo it. Just sprinkle it a little bit, and you could do something simple like a salted pepper and maybe a little oregano. And it just grill it up and get a nice little color on them and soften them up, and they're
Man, I'm gonna mark that down because it's nice here finally in Philadelphia now that the cold snap has been over. We're finally thawed from WrestleMania, so I'm going to go ahead and fire up the grill pretty soon. Jimmy Korderas, I want to thank you so much for your time, for being here today, taking the time to talk to me on the show. Where can everybody outside of Refin It Up, where can everybody keep up to date with you on your social media feeds?
Well, on Twitter, you can find me at Jimmy Korderas, Instagram at Real Jimmy Korderas, and I'm also on Facebook. You can try me there, and I'm easily accessible. I love cordial debate, civil debate, but if you want to chirp a little bit, hey, I'm not above that as well too. Like I said, I like to amuse myself sometimes when I'm looking for something to do.
Yep. Hey, listen, and Twitter's the place for it because I'm never calling it X. We're going to still call it Twitter because that's what the cool kids do. Jimmy Korderas, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You can find me on my socials everywhere: TikTok, Twitter, Threads, Instagram. This is Goober. Yes, it's my handle. No, I'm not changing it. It's a brand, pal. You can catch out new episodes and everything in the archive at the YouTube page as well. Jimmy Korderas, thank you so much for your time again, sir. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And again, say hello to Meanie for me.
I absolutely will. I'll pass the message. Foundation Radio is hosted, recorded, and produced by Adam Barnard. Additional narration and production is provided by the executive voice, Sam Krepps. Our mixing and engineering was done by Carl Pannell. Our intro and outro music is performed by Dumb Ugly. Additional musical accompaniment is performed and produced by Enrichment. Our cover art photography was done by Dylan Eddinger. Follow Adam on Instagram and Twitter, or X or whatever, at This Is Goober, and follow the show on Twitter, again, not calling it X, at FND Radio Pod. Find the entire show archive at foundationradio.net. This has been a Butts Carlton Media production, Butts Carlton Proprietor.
That doesn't work for me, brother. Peace, Carl!